Tonight on the Pioneer Sideline, we see how the soccer teams did in their conference championships. Then we announce news coming out of the athletic department. We also have national news and finish up with a case of the week. All that and more as we head on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Welcome to the Pioneer Sideline. I'm your host, Chris Hoffman. The women's soccer team looked to win the KIAC championship this past weekend. Kyle Anthony is here to see if they could win it all.
Well, Chris, the Point Park women's soccer team had goals this season, and they were to win the KIC tournament and to win the NIA National Championship. With those goals, have to wait another season. The Pioneers have played 2 games since the last time they met. The first was a semifinal game versus city rival Carlow. The Pioneers and Carlow played once before the season, and that game ended in a 1-1 tie after playing 2 overtimes. The semifinal game that those two played went kind of the same way. They played 2 overtimes, but the score was 0-0. But in the playoffs, you can't tie, so it was all determined by penalty kicks. Each team chose their best 5 shooters to go. The Pioneers picked Lisa Tokarski, Allison Joyce, Beth Melican, Kara Kowalski, and Emily Lever. Those 5 showed why they were picked. All 5 of them scored on goal. Mackenzie Pinto, the Pioneers goalkeeper, stopped 2 out of the 5 shots she faced. So the Pioneers would be moving into the finals after beating Carlow 5-3 in penalty kicks. Point Park would be taking on the number 1 seed Asbury, who beat the Pioneers earlier in the season 1-0. That was the only KIC loss for the Pioneers. So, the Pioneers were expecting a better result in the finals, but that didn't happen. After the first half, the game was tied 1-1. Point Park outshot Asbury 2-0. The second half is when everything went downhill, and that's when all the scoring happened. In the 61st minute, Asbury got the first goal, and that was by Shada Painter, which was her 15th on the season. But 5 minutes later, the Pioneers struck back with a goal by Louise Delaney. But the tie was broken at the 79-minute mark when Shada Painter got her 16th of the season, and that's how the final score ended at 2-1. The Pioneers in Asbury had the same amount of shots, 4-4. So the Pioneers ended their season with a record of 7-12-1 with a 4-1-1 record in the KIAC.
Kyle, the Pioneers weren't able to get it all done in the KIAC this year, but they still finished up with a 4-1-1 record. How big is that for them in their second season in this new conference?
I know what I think that's a big thing for them, Chris, because last year they played really well in the KIAC and did a good job, and this year they were able to continue that and finish with 4 wins.
Now, Kyle, moving forward, once again, this team looked really good this season, but they had a lot of struggles away from home. What do they need to fix in the offseason to really improve for next year?
I think, just work on, I think that's a big mental thing for this team, and I think if they worked on their scoring, because this team did struggle to score on the road, if they worked on some scoring, that would help this team out a lot too.
Now, Kyle, they have a lot to look for next season. What is going to be their big focus in the offseason? Is it scoring or defense?
Well, this team's always been defensive-minded, so definitely the focus goes to scoring and trying to help take some pressure off that defense.
All right, thanks, Kyle. The men's soccer team also looked to win the KIAC championship and make it back to the NAIA National Tournament. Zach Aaron now joins me to see if they could get the job done.
On their way, the Point Park men's soccer team was heading into the tournament semifinals facing Brescia. They won the game score being 6-0. They had 5 different players score, which was a great all-around performance by the Pioneers. Gabriel Colombo had himself 2 goals and an assist, and really giving the Pioneers the extra boost they needed. Next week, the Pioneers would be facing Asbury at Highmark Stadium, which was a battle indeed. The Pioneers defeated Asbury in a hard match, winning the game 2-1. The goals were scored early by Usman Jaite, but the game was then sealed when the forward Fraser McKinley scored the game winner. The Pioneers are conference tournament champions and will be heading back to the NAIA tournament again for back-to-back seasons.
Zach, they are able to win the KIAC championship this year and make it to the NAIA national tournament again. How big is it for this team to be in the tournament 2 straight years?
That's huge, and it sends a really big message to the Pioneers, or to the KIAC and the NAIA, by saying that we're here to compete, and we're here to compete hard. 2 straight years going to the NAIA tournament is not an easy task. Credit to Coach Jeroen Walstra on leading this team so well and sending them to back-to-back NAIA tournament berths.
Now, Zach, you look at they're in the national tournament again, and what do you see them being able to do? They only made it a little bit in last year. Do you think they can make a splash on the national level?
I certainly think they have the talent they need, but the only problem is that they probably won't host any games on the road just because of the way the KIAC is laid out, in that the NAIA knows the KIAC, compared to some other divisions in the NAIA, isn't the strongest. But I believe they can go pretty far. They certainly have the talent with Usman Jaite. They have a very balanced attack, and they also have a good defense. They just have to be sure that they don't get too attack-oriented and they forget about defense, because that's what killed them in a few games during the season.
Thanks, guys. After the break, Kyle Anthony and Phil Novotzik join me to talk about the week that was for the basketball teams.